Good afternoon. I'm just going to wait a few more moments to make sure everyone is situated. All right, it looks like we have everyone in the room, so I'm going to go ahead and get started with my introductory remarks. Good afternoon. I'm Hearing Officer Nicole Kinsey with the Administrative Hearings Office of the State Water Resources Control Board. It is January 30th, 2023, and this is a status conference for the petitions for partial assignment of state filed applications 12919 and 12920 and water right applications 12919C and 12920B filed by Mendocino County Russian River Flood Control and Water Conservation Improvement District, which I shall refer to as Mendocino District going forward. This status conference is being conducted by Zoom web conference and is also being broadcast live on the AHO YouTube channel. Both the audio and video are being recorded, and we will post files of this recording along with the Zoom generated transcript to the AHO FTP site. The YouTube recording will also be available on the AHO YouTube webpage. If at any time you're experiencing technical difficulties trying to communicate with us, please send an email to the AHO at adminhrgoffice@waterboards.ca.gov. The AHO staff will be monitoring that email inbox. Assisting me today are several staff of the Administrative Hearings Office: Nicole Mullen, Amy Blanc, Skylar Anderson, and Kyle Woldridge. I'd like at this time to go ahead and move to appearances. To do that, I will identify each of the entities that previously filed NOIs. And as I do, if you are representing that entity, please unmute your microphone and state your name. And we will start with Mendocino District.
Good morning, G.D. Zalesi, General Counsel.
Good morning.
It's afternoon. Good afternoon, Ms. Zalesi. And
It is already.
I'm happy to see you here, and I'm glad you could join us today. So my condolences. I don't know what the emergency was, and no need to share, but I'm happy you're here with us today. So thank you.
Elizabeth Salamone, General Manager of the Mendocino District.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Ms. Salamone.
Good afternoon, Chris Watt, President of the Board of Trustees of the Mendocino District.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Watt. All right, I'll turn to Sonoma County Water Agency.
Good afternoon, Ms. Kinsey. Ryan Becerra for Sonoma County Water Agency, and Don Seymour with the agency is here as well today.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Becerra and Mr. Seymour. Friends of the Eel River.
Friends of the Eel River was not able to attend. Scott Grecian had an emergency dental issue and is at the dentist. So he asked me to communicate that.
Thank you, and I'm sorry to hear that, but thank you, Mr. Schutz. So I will stick with you, Mr. Schutz. California Sport Fishing Protection Alliance, and I'll give you a chance to introduce yourself.
Chris Schutz for the California Sport Fishing Protection Alliance.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else on the line today who intends to participate who has not yet had a chance to introduce themselves?
I apologize, Ms. Kinsey. Todd Schramm with the Sonoma County Water Agency is here as well, I see. Sorry about that, Todd.
Thank you, Mr. Becerra, and welcome, Mr. Schramm. So I will turn now to the purpose of the status conference. I think this will be pretty quick, but the purpose of the status conference today is, as I see it, is to hear from the Mendocino District about progress since our last, what I'll call our last substantive status conference, which was on August 19th. In completing those items necessary to support its application for a water right permit. I did receive from Mendocino District a status conference statement on January 25th, which I appreciated, thank you. And that statement included a brief update on where the district is in preparing a revised preliminary water availability analysis. And that statement also described some future steps that the district will be taking in further pursuit of those applications. So I think first, what I'd like to do is hear from the district. Then I'll turn to other parties for comments about the district's progress and the proposed schedule. And then we can talk about next steps two items that I additionally had and will probably be part of this discussion is whether I need to set a deadline for comments on the revised preliminary water availability analysis, depending on when that will be available or if it's already been made available. And then whether it's appropriate at this time to set a deadline for the district to determine whether or not it's going to continue to pursue these petitions and applications or whether to submit new water right applications. And then I just wanted to note that we already have another status conference set for March 21st. So that's not far out. I'm planning to keep that unless someone has comments about that. I'm planning to keep that. So I think that would be our next status conference looking into the future. So with that, I will turn to you, Ms. Zalesi. I read the status conference statement, but is there anything else that you would like to add or mention about the district's achievements to date, and then also where we might go from here?
No, Ms. Quincy, and I appreciate the patience. It has taken us longer than we thought it would. I believe we will come out of this process with a very good product, but it is taking a little more time. And I appreciate Sonoma Water's cooperation in that, in using their model and working with our consultant, because I think it really honed in on what we're looking at. We do have a revised draft. We're waiting for final input from Sonoma Water, and then we'll be able to share with the protestants and reach some conclusions on that actual draft. The goal of that process is to determine from that revised water availability analysis whether there is any benefit to continue with the existing applications, or if we need to exclusively file new applications based on the water availability that we see. So that is going to be something that our experts and engineers determine after that is available. And we intend to do that in consultation with Sonoma Water and the protestants. So Beth, I don't know if you have stuff to add.
Thank you. I spoke to our engineer last week. I believe Sonoma Water gave their final sign off with one last comment. So our engineers are now updating the document, and then they'll send that over. And the other thing I wanted to mention was regarding the delays and the extensions, is that what we've been able to do is sort of anticipate, through working with the protestants, we've been able to anticipate what they might have asked for in revisions from the original document if we had submitted it earlier. So we're really hoping to come forward with a complete document that everyone is, signed off on, and we won't have multiple revisions. So we're kind of preempting that. We hope, fingers crossed. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to both of you for that update. I think I'm in favor of this type of cooperative effort. It seems clear to me that you are working on this and are working with, at least with Sonoma Water Agency, on moving this forward. And I appreciate that. I do think it will end up with a better product, and we'll have a better idea of where we're going. So hopefully that will save time in the future down the road. And that makes a lot of sense to me. Based on what you've shared so far, it sounds to me like you are on the verge of sharing this revised preliminary water availability analysis with the remaining parties, protestants, I should say. Do you have an estimate of when that would be? I know it's maybe difficult to say, but are we talking within the next week, or are we talking within the next month? What is your projection?
Thank you. I would say within the next week to 2 weeks. Right now, as you may know, tomorrow is our deadline for annual water rights reporting, which is a new deadline for us this year. So everybody, all the engineers, and I'm sure Sonoma Water and ourselves, we're working on that. So I'd hope within 2 weeks we'll have that released to everyone.
Okay, thank you. And then maybe some clarification on, once that is released, at that time, would you, I guess based on the schedule, if you were to release this document within the next 1 to 2 weeks and you were to receive comments back, I'm sure I'm going to talk to you, I'm going to turn to the protestants in a moment about how much time you need for comments. But let's say it's approximately 6 weeks to receive comments at that time, then you would begin making a final determination as to the next steps on the petition and application. Is that roughly, I'm just trying to understand how these are working, and I know
Yes,
things,
I think
we're
that's
getting
the case.
conventions.
We
Okay.
would take into based on those responses, we may need meetings with those parties, but then I think the plan is with our consultants to take back a recommendation to our board. And Beth, I will look to you for what meeting you think that would be, the March meeting perhaps, to make those final decisions.
I was just looking at my calendar. I would say, to be safe, yes, March.
And when is that meeting?
Oh, sorry. March 5th, 6th, sorry, 6th.
Okay, so that's before the status conference, correct? Ms. Quincy?
Yes, we currently have the status conference set for March 21st, so that seems like that may
Yeah,
fit.
that may fit perfectly.
And we may have some update at that point, so
Yeah.
that seems helpful. Seems helpful to me, and we'll know more at the status conference itself. I think at this point, let me turn to the other parties. I'll look first to Sonoma County Water Agency. Mr. Becerra, do you have anything you'd like to add on this in this discussion?
I will defer completely to Mr. Seymour and Mr. Schramm as to how much time they need.
So I think the question on the table is, how much time would you want to provide any additional comments? Although I understand you're working together with Mendocino District, but any additional comments on the revised preliminary water availability analysis?
Yeah, good afternoon. So yeah, we've been working quite closely with the district, and so we've already had a pretty extensive review of the document and understand, how they're using the data and the model output. I would say 4 weeks would be adequate for Sonoma Water.
Thank you. And then I will look to you, Mr. Schutz. I realize that CSPA may not have had the advantage of, I don't know the extent of your conversations with Mendocino District at this point, so there may be a different estimate based on kind of the ramp up to understanding the documents and that kind of thing. But what is your proposal in terms of time to meaningfully respond to this water availability analysis?
Well, the only communications we've had with Mendocino have been conceptual. And then they started doing their work with Sonoma Water. That's all very good. But if we get something in a week or two, which puts us mid-February, I can't see how we're going to be able to turn around comments in time certainly for Mendocino, and I'm using that shorthand, the Mendocino agencies, March 6th meeting. I can't see that that's reasonable. And March 21st would give us a month. I don't know the extent of the technical nature of this document, but having looked at it before and having some familiarity with the types of models that are at play here, it seems to me that a deadline sometime in April would probably be more appropriate, or certainly at the end of March. Again, it's a little hard shadow boxing and not knowing what exactly the extent of the document is and the changes, but it takes a while to get into the technical substance of these things and to understand how they've set it up, and not having the benefit of technical experts working with the model as such that Sonoma has. That also means that it's going to take a little longer. And I would say the same would be true for Pennsylvania River.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Schutz. I think, and I'm going to turn back to Mendocino District in a moment, because I'd sort of like to understand when is the most efficient time for you to receive feedback in this whole process. I want us also to keep in mind this is a preliminary water availability analysis, so it's not as if this is the last opportunity to comment on any of these issues. There are processes yet to come. I'm really trying to just encourage the conversation, and by setting deadlines for comments is to strongly encourage these conversations to occur. So I'll turn to you, Ms. Zalesi. How do you see, if you were to receive comments on this document from CSPA, let's say at the end of March, but possibly after the next status conference, how would that fit in? How do you think that fits in with the process that you already outlined or that you envisioned? Can these proceed concurrently? What is the most efficient way in your mind to proceed here?
We could still go to our board and discuss these concepts at the March meeting. But we're going to need the feedback from all of the protestants to determine, what the best manner of proceeding is. So it would somewhat impede the decisions we could make at that March meeting, but
Right.
it wouldn't delay it completely. We could still go to our board, discuss the concepts that we're recommending, pending comments. We do hope once we have the comments in that we will sit down with each of the protestants and say, based on our discussions with our board and our experts, this is what we think we'd like to do, and get their feedback from that. So we could continue with that, getting that feedback from the board at the March meeting, and then proceeding with those meetings, hopefully after we get CSPA's comments.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Zalesi. So what I'm thinking is I think I'll set a deadline that's 6 weeks out from whenever that preliminary water availability analysis is circulated to all the parties. And so that I can make that, depending on when that comes out and when I issue a ruling, I'll either say 6 weeks or we'll have a date, one or the other. But it'll be 6 weeks from when that is circulated. That will likely fall, I haven't done the math, but maybe it has to fall, or will very likely fall after our status conference on March 21st. But I think it makes sense for us to have that status conference because it sounds like you may have some updates, and I would like to check in. And at that point, we can talk about what additional deadlines going forward make sense. So that is what I am currently thinking. Do you have any other comments or thoughts about that, Ms. Zalesi? Just about the schedule I laid out?
No, I think that sounds fine. I mean, we may end up not having a lot to talk about at the status conference, but then it'll just be short. So I think it's a good way to proceed.
Great, good. And I'll just turn to the room. Anyone else have comments or concerns about this proposal that will keep the March 21st status conference? And then I will set what is right now a floating deadline of 6 weeks from when the document is circulated. Keeping in mind, Mr. Schutz, I know you haven't seen the document, and if it turns out to be a monstrous modeling exercise, we can talk about how to best proceed at the next status conference.
Sure. I would also request, if possible, that we get notified of the March meeting of the Mendocino district. I assume that's a public meeting. If we could listen in, that might help us in our review to understand the thinking of the district.
I'll make sure you're on the distribution list, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything else we should talk about today? All right, well, thank you very much. I really appreciate your joining me for this short status conference. I think they're quite helpful. They're helpful for me to make sure and check in. I will see all of you on March 21st. Thank you again for your participation, and we are adjourned for the day.
Thank you.